A friendly face at the airport offers to share a hotel room. Hours later, body parts are found floating in the Singapore River. This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It's the true story of John Martin Scripps, the tourist from hell. In 1995, Scripps embarked on a killing spree that spanned 2 countries and left at least 3 tourists dead. But how did this unassuming Englishman transform into one of Singapore's most notorious serial killers? And why did he target fellow travelers? Today, let's dive into the case of John Martin Scripps, the Garden City Butcher. John Martin Scripps' life was a downward spiral of petty crimes and prison sentences, beginning long before he became the notorious tourist from hell. Born in 1959 in Letchworth, Hertfordshire, England, Scripps' childhood took a dark turn when his father, a truck driver, ended his life. This traumatic event, occurring when John was just 10 years old, influenced his emotional development and set the stage for a troubled future. Struggling academically and grappling with dyslexia, Scripps dropped out of school at 15, feeling inadequate and ill-equipped for life's challenges. His criminal career began early with a burglary conviction at the tender age of 14 in 1974. Despite receiving a conditional discharge, this brush with the law did nothing to deter young Scripps. By 1978, his rap sheet had grown to include multiple burglaries and an indecent assault, signaling an alarming escalation in both the frequency and severity of his crimes. In 1980, in Mexico, he married Maria Pilar Arianos. However, their marriage fell apart when John was arrested for theft, burglary, and resisting arrest. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, but just a few months in, he escaped. After finishing his second prison term, John switched from burglary to drug trafficking. In 1987, he was caught at Heathrow Airport with heroin and a safe key that led police to a stash of 1.5 kilograms in Singapore. This got him a 7-year sentence. Yet again, John escaped while on home leave, but he was eventually rearrested. For this escape, the court added another 6 years to his sentence, leaving him with 13 years in prison. As Scripps cycled in and out of the British prison system throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he encountered rehabilitation programs that aimed to provide inmates with vocational skills. However, these well-intentioned efforts would later prove catastrophic. During his time at Albany Prison, Scripps displayed an unexpected aptitude for butchery. While serving his sentence, John was promoted to the role of prison butcher. He trained under 2 other inmates who taught him how to cut meat from the bone and other butchery skills. Surprisingly, John seemed to enjoy the job and often talked about his dream of opening a butcher shop once he was released. These skills would later serve a sinister purpose. The prison environment had a profound psychological impact on Scripps. While outwardly appearing to be a model prisoner, he managed to mask his violent tendencies, allowing them to fester and grow unchecked. Scripps' pattern of offenses and escapes reached its peak in 1994. During a period of home leave, his own mother enabled his final escape, providing him with money to flee. John took the money along with a fake birth certificate that belonged to someone else, and a fake passport to travel. With his newfound freedom, Scripps set the sights beyond British shores. Armed with a new identity and the chilling skills he had acquired behind bars, he made his way to Singapore. The quiet, ordinary Englishman who walked into Changi Airport seemed worlds apart from the troubled young man who'd entered the prison system years ago. But underneath that plain and unremarkable appearance was a predator, ready to bring horror to unsuspecting tourists. In the bustling corridors of Changi Airport, a chance encounter between two travelers set the stage for a series of events that would shock Singapore to its core. Gerard George Low, a South African chemical engineer, arrived in the city-state on March 8, 1995, with plans to shop for electronic goods. Low, an employee of South African breweries, were looking to save money on his trip. When Scripps approached him with an offer to share a hotel room, it seemed like a practical solution. The two men checked into the Riverview Hotel together, an innocuous decision that would have deadly consequences. As days passed without any sign of Low, concern began to grow. His wife, Vanessa, hadn't heard from him, and his colleagues at South African breweries were unable to reach him. On March 13, 1995, just 5 days after Low's arrival in Singapore, plastic bags containing human body parts were found floating off Clifford Pier. The grisly contents sent shockwaves through the police force and the public alike. Initial examinations revealed that the remains belonged to a Caucasian male, but the victim's head and arms were conspicuously absent. Forensic experts worked tirelessly to piece together the limited evidence they had. The precision of the dismemberment was striking, suggesting that the killer possessed a chilling expertise in butchery. However, the absence of crucial body parts presented a significant challenge. As one forensic pathologist noted, determining the exact cause of death without the head and arms was an uphill battle. As the investigation unfolded, police treaded carefully, wary of alerting the killer who might still be at large. They meticulously combed through hotel records and gathered witness statements, slowly building a picture of the victim's final days. Suspicious behavior from Scripps after Low's disappearance began to emerge, casting a dark shadow over the seemingly friendly traveler. The day after Low checked into Scripps' hotel room together, John approached the hotel receptionist and asked them to remove Low's name from the room registration system. Reports say he claimed he had kicked Low out the night before for being homosexual. The receptionist didn't press for details and complied with his request. Later that day, John forged Low's signature to access his credit card, withdrawing $6,000. He went on to splurge, buying expensive items, attending concerts, and even transferring about $13,500 into his own bank account. Finally, he purchased a plane ticket to Bangkok, furthering his escape. The true horror of Low's murder began to come into focus. Experts suggested that the level of dismemberment indicated more than just an attempt to dispose of a body. It pointed to a killer with a deep-seated desire for control and power over his victims. The premeditation and lack of empathy required for such an act painted a disturbing psychological profile of the perpetrator. With the investigation in Singapore gaining momentum, there was a growing sense that this might not be an isolated incident. Where would John Martin Scripps strike next? While Singapore grappled with the horror of Low's murder, John Martin Scripps was already on the move. His next destination, the tropical paradise of Phuket. But this was no ordinary holiday. Scripps carried with him a dark secret, and a set of skills that would turn an idyllic Thai getaway into a gruesome crime scene. Sheila May Demude, an administrator at the Pacific Christian School in Victoria, Canada, was eagerly anticipating a reunion with her son, Darren. The 22-year-old Darren had been waiting in Bangkok for his mother to arrive, so they could fly together to Phuket for his spring break. Little did they know that their family vacation would soon become a nightmare. Upon arriving in Phuket, Sheila and Darren checked into Nilly's Marina Inn, where they had adjoining rooms with a seemingly friendly traveler using the alias Simon Davis. This was, of course, John Martin Scripps, who had carefully orchestrated this proximity to his next victims. The Demudes were last seen having breakfast at the hotel before they vanished without a trace. Their failure to check out as scheduled raised alarms, but by then, it was too late. And at 11 in the morning, John asked the receptionist to switch his room to room 43, where the Demudes were staying, saying that they had already left. Scripps had struck again, leaving behind a trail of horror that would shock even the most seasoned investigators. On March 19, 1995, the gruesome reality of what had transpired began to unfold. The skulls of Sheila and Darren DeMude were discovered in a disused tin mine in Phuket. 5 days later, a torso, along with a pair of arms and legs, was discovered along Ban Nai Trong Road, about 9.7 kilometers away. Tragically, the remains were already in an advanced state of decomposition, forcing Thai authorities to rely on dental records to identify the victims. The dismembered body parts were believed to belong to Sheila, but no trace of Darren's other remains was ever found. The discoveries in Phuket sparked a complex cross-border investigation. Authorities in Thailand and Singapore worked tirelessly to piece together the evidence, tracking Scripps' movements across Southeast Asia. Experts noted a chilling pattern in Scripps' behavior. Like many serial killers who target tourists, he exhibited a talent for manipulation and charm, easily gaining his victims' trust before unleashing his violent tendencies. This insight painted a disturbing picture of a predator who could seamlessly blend into the carefree atmosphere of popular tourist destinations. As the investigation intensified, authorities realized that Scripps had already slipped away from Thailand. He had returned to Singapore, the scene of his first known murder, in a brazen move that would ultimately lead to his downfall. John Martin Scripps' reign of terror came to an abrupt end on March 19, 1995, as he stepped off a plane at Changi Airport. Unbeknownst to him, Singapore authorities had been meticulously piecing together evidence from the gruesome discovery in the Singapore River. As Scripps casually made his way through the terminal, police officers closed in, their months of investigation culminating in this pivotal moment. When Scripps was arrested, police found some truly disturbing evidence on him. Multiple passports, including those belonging to the victims, were found alongside credit cards that didn't bear his name. Most chilling of all was the discovery of what police described as a murder kit, a collection of tools including a hammer, knives, and an electric stun gun. As the trial began on October 2, 1995, Scripps attempted to manipulate the justice system with a web of lies and misdirection. He claimed that Gerard Lowe's death was an act of self-defense, alleging that Lowe had made unwanted sexual advances. John said his friend helped dispose of Gerard's body and later handed him the passports and belongings of the DeMude couple, whom John claimed he'd never met before flying to Phuket. However, when asked to identify this friend, John refused, claiming the man was a dangerous figure in the drug trade who might harm his family. John also repeatedly claimed he wasn't a violent person, but someone who couldn't remember details due to being high on drugs most of the time. The prosecution didn't buy his story. They questioned how John could neatly forge signatures on the DeMude's credit cards if he was as disoriented as he claimed. They also found no evidence of the so-called British friend checking in or out of the hotels John mentioned. Instead, the prosecution argued that John killed Gerard to rob him, pointing to receipts from a shopping spree with Gerard's credit card as proof of premeditation. They also drew parallels to the DeMude's murders, where John befriended the victims, they went missing, their bodies were butchered, and John used their credit cards, all following the same pattern. The prosecution's strategy was relentless and comprehensive. They presented over 100 photographs and called upon 39 witnesses to build an irrefutable case against Scripps. Forensic experts testified to the meticulous nature of the dismemberments, highlighting the specialized skills required, skills that Scripps had acquired during his time in prison. Each piece of evidence further eroded Scripps' facade of innocence. On November 11, 1995, the verdict was delivered. John Martin Scripps was found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. This judgment carried historical significance, marking him as the first Briton to receive the death penalty in Singapore since the country's independence. The sentence showed Singapore's strict stance on capital punishment and sent a clear message about the consequences of such heinous crimes. Scripps' execution on April 19, 1996, brought a final close to his brutal killing spree. As the news spread, it prompted reflection on the vulnerability of tourists and the dark possibilities that can lurk behind friendly faces in unfamiliar places. As we reflect on this dark chapter, we must remember the victims, Gerard Lowe, Sheila, and Darren Demude, whose lives were tragically cut short. Their death shows the importance of remaining vigilant while traveling, even in seemingly safe destinations. While we shouldn't let fear overshadow the joys of exploration, Scripps' case reminds us that caution and awareness are essential companions on any journey. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.